Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first of 4 Poet Laureates Out Loud virtual readings scheduled throughout the month of April to celebrate National Poetry Month. The 5 poets you'll hear this evening have been selected by their communities to promote the enjoyment of poetry to citizens of all ages, all demographics, and all educational levels. And as you'll see, they're proof positive that poetry is not dull academic drudgery, but an accessible, vibrant art form for today. Now, each of the poets is a member of the Connecticut Coalition of Poets Laureate, the mission of which is to be a resource for communities wishing to appoint their own local poet laureates and to support the efforts of those individuals once selected. And I guess without further delay, I should just go right into the biography of our first poet, let's see here a second. I apologize, I'm having a little technical difficulty here, bringing up my biographies. Hold on. Okay, here we go. My apologies. Oops. I'm going to take us down for a second. I'm having a little difficulty. I'll bring up the brand. Don't leave. I'll be back in 2 minutes or less. Here we go. This is a very new technology for me. I apologize for the delay, but without further ado, let me introduce, please, Daniel Donaghy. Daniel is the Poet Laureate of Windham. He's the author most recently of Somerset, which was co-winner of the Patterson Poetry Prize, and Start with the Trouble, winner of the University of Arkansas Press Poetry Prize. Daniel received a 2019 Artist Fellowship from the Connecticut Office of the Arts, and is a professor of English at Eastern Connecticut State University, where he edits Here, a poetry journal, with his students. So please welcome, if you would, Daniel Donaghy.
Oh, thank you, Barb.
Welcome.
I'd like to start with a couple of poems from a recent experience. My daughter had the good fortune of being cast, she's 12, cast as the lead in a Christmas movie. And these first 2 are out of that experience. It's called The Movie World. There you are on the set, real dad of the girl whose movie dad, the script says, is newly widowed and in town only for Christmas until he runs into his high school flame. He's taller than you, younger, Instagram famous, hair so perfect, even the caterer finds reason to touch it. His arms thick as thighs beneath a white cable knit sweater. You heard someone say, a model, college football, The Bachelor. You note how little energy he burns compared to what he attracts. He stands stone still between takes and playful questions come to him from the crew in waves. Dog person or cat person? What's your favorite song? He answers each with a rehearsed seriousness and a smile, speaking softly as if into a boom mic, and with an unblinking gaze compels who's ever in front of him to enter for a moment a scene the same for him whether cameras roll or not. A charged exchange of laughter and awkward silence the other person always breaks first. like your daughter did in the hotel lobby before he extended an elbow to her in these post-handshake times. What really gets you is how kind he's been to her, 12, costumed in pigtails and sparkly pink boots to play 10, who, in her excitement to be on a film set, to be anywhere free for 2 weeks of remote learning, remote friends, is a running faucet of giggles and small talk. She asks him his favorite color, his middle name, makes him guess the names of her pets, and he never once steps away. Some part of her opening here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, like the door of the flower shop they'll walk through together in the next scene, hitting their marks in front of the register to pay for the best tree in the makeshift lot, a Fraser fir longer than their car and wider. The one they'd picked a scene earlier while rare lake effect snow blew in off Uloga Lake to the north. Clumps of it stuck to precise spots on their hats by the continuity director before each slate slap, before movie dad, reaching for his wallet, recognized in multiple takes from 3 different angles the woman in the soiled smock as she dropped a box of ornaments, and the plot turned as quickly as a road leading home. The dad's decision to stay in town, start over, live near his sister, and of course the shop owner, who falls for your daughter because she too lost her mother as a girl. The spontaneous hug they share, sealing their scripted bond in the scrim soft light of a straight-to-TV movie world you've long thought yourself too good for. These movies too saccharine sweet, unserious. Well, one you've clicked past each Christmas before arriving at a place you thought more worth your time on a carousel of bad news, real or made up. Betrayals, bombings, beheadings, cockfighting, kidnapping, carjackings, killings, spilling of oil or blood or both on a coast whose waters warm and rise. Never letting yourself consider art for which sweetness is the sole simple point. Sweetness that will offer a balm for 90 minutes, if you let it, to soothe these burning days. So the movie is going to be called A Christmas Love Tree, and they're shopping it around now toward the Lifetime and Hallmark market, maybe Netflix, but it's a really sweet movie. This is another poem from that experience as I got to be the dad on set. This is called Extras. A production assistant has placed them like living furniture in a small room. For substitute teachers' wages, they'll breathe through masks all day and into the night, waiting to be summoned to sip coffee in a blurred background or walk smiling across the camera's eye the instant after the slate claps and before the principals speak. They'll get a half hour for lunch and will make $14 extra if required to get wet or work in smoke. If any of the daily rewrites of this family Christmas film suddenly call for any of them to get rigged with explosives, those rigs will be paid for the day at principal's wages and will have the right to consult with the riggers. They've brought snacks, silenced their phones, gone to the bathroom. They've been told not to talk to cast or crew, so they text, draw, lift their chins toward the ceiling while songs and voices fill their earbuds. Each keeps an eye on the door, which the PA could push open at any moment, asking for 4 or 6 or just one of them. And like a teacher calling children to the board, he'll point to the first hands he sees. A young woman reads a book on how to write comedy scripts. And if one day she casts her own extras, she'll instruct them as she's been instructed to make no motion so large that it draws attention to the truth they've accepted. They're in no way important to the plot and are there to add color, like a loon to a lake, a life sentence for some, a fate assigned on set for only today, to these extras, these background actors who've stepped away from whatever else they do for a chance to act in a film, and who won't know until it airs if there will be any proof that they did. And I'd like to end with a poem called Green Heron. It's Green Heron is my new favorite bird. That will change as soon as I see my first red-winged blackbird of the year. I'm late to seeing it. Don't get out enough. But a green heron is one of those kind of birds by a pond or a body of water who will throw bait into the water and wait for the fish to come and then strike at the fish. Fascinating tiny bird. A green heron fishes with bread from the bank muddied by last night's rain. Its S-shaped neck stretches over still water, its spear of a bill just off the surface, after he drops the crust and waits for fry to rise on this June day of bog bean and sweet flag, 3 red-eared sliders basking on a log, a bullfrog croaking somewhere inside bee balm and cardinal flower. Poised, coiled, he looks at nothing but water ringed by duckweed, angles his head against glare. What is on his mind besides sunnies and minnows whose spines will snap when he shakes them, then swallows them whole? He lifts the bread, sets it elsewhere, a fly fisher, casting. Then the blur of a stab beneath the crust at the precise moment. A fish strikes, then several gulps, 2 deep, slow breaths, its streaked breast puffing to double its normal size, green cap cresting, before the long exhale. The settling of round gray wings and what's left of the bread, ripples spreading over the park's pond. The heron fills this morning with the spectacle of his pure purpose. Instinct ancient as desire, reptilian eyes stalking twitches and shadows, talons sunk into gravel or roots, more fish certain to rise, until my slight shift sends him squawking toward the tree line, wings wide, gliding, long neck stretched straight, as he drops a white warning in his wake. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Daniel, very much. It's exciting about the movie, right?
Oh, it's a chance of a lifetime. And she did such a good job. Yeah, it's really, really exciting.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your reading. Really appreciate it. Okay, so next we have Benjamin S. Grossberg, who is the Poet Laureate of West Hartford. He's also the Director of Creative Writing at the University of Hartford. His books include My Husband Would, which was published by University of Tampa in 2020, Space Traveler, also by University of Tampa in 2014, and Sweet Core Orchard by the University of Tampa in 2019. He's the winner of the 2008 Tampa Review Prize and a Lambda Literary Award. Ben's poems have appeared widely, including in the Pushcart Prize and Best American Poetry Anthologies, Poetry Daily and Verse Daily, and the magazine's Paris Review, Kenyon Review, Plowshares, Southern Review, and The Sun. Last month, as an aside, last month, Ben's collection, As Our Right Fit, was named a semifinalist in the Tupelo Press Sunken Garden chapbook competition, which is a huge, huge honor. So please, if you would, welcome Benjamin Grossberg. Let me bring him into the studio. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Barb. Thank you so much for all your work putting all this together.
Oh,
really
my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm a little finagling with the technology still, but it's been a joy. So, all right, take it away.
I'm going to read some poems tonight from my new collection, My Husband Would, and I'm gonna start with a poem about sex in the woods, because I think probably every reading needs one of those, and I want to make sure we don't leave it behind. This poem is called Whose Eyes Dart Contagious Fire. And that phrase is actually from Milton. It's from Paradise Lost. It's the description of Eve's eyes when she approaches Adam after having bitten the apple. Whose eyes dart contagious fire. I'd like to convince you that it was beautiful. He and I in a state park, hidden by trees, just off the cleared space of a power line, tottering against each other and still mostly dressed. Can you believe it was beautiful? Or innocent, because it was that too, innocent. The kind of warm November that invites spontaneous running. I ran and he tried to catch up, soon leaping onto, tackling me, both of us falling, out of breath and laughing. If we were 16, if there was a soundtrack, a pulling back and panning of trees, if music soared, wouldn't you describe the moment as innocent? If one of us were a high school quarterback, the other shy, living out the template of a crush, if she were shivering in a long cotton shirt, sleeves pulled over her hands, and he bundled her in the leather of his coat, wouldn't it be innocent, be beautiful? But two middle-aged men by a power line on a second date with our clothes bunched around our midriffs, ankles. What if I said it was twilight and we tore apart from each other to the shock of headlights, a siren, that a cop came out of the vehicle angry, and a second angry cop, one from each door, started toward us, a public park. That's what they were saying, hitting the word like a nightstick against an open palm, a public park. Imagine us now, our hoods pulled over our heads, cuffed, lowered into the back seat. What if the shy girl undoes her hair, takes off her glasses, and even though she's curled, twirls away from the quarterback like a ballerina? Then he laughs, does a mock twirl of his own, and holds his hand out to her, as if they were really going to start something like ballet. Only then they kiss, and the camera does its slow, insinuating fade. In the backseat of the cop car, he and I look down to our knees, away from each other. We are locked behind plexiglass, hearing a voice swagger into the CB, coming in with a couple of fags. Yeah, at Johnson State, we caught them pegging each other in the woods. Except it didn't happen that way. It was sundown, and we cleared each other with a crumple of leaves. And walking back along the path, we passed teenagers from a local college, a couple, I think, probably out there to get stoned or watch the sunset, likely both. And that too is beautiful, is innocent, isn't it? They looked up at us as we passed, two middle-aged guys knocking shoulders, but they didn't do a double take. The guy nodded his head a little. The girl just smiled. The next poem I'm going to read is about caterpillars. There is no public sex in this poem, but there are caterpillars. In my 47th year. Me walking downcast. Him dangling ankle level above a forest path with no branches overhead. I glanced to the canopy, a good 30 feet up, 30 feet. No overhang closer. Let's pause for scale. The caterpillar, half-inch long, and his silk just a glint when the wind sets it swinging, as if someone has, with an X-Acto knife, cut a vector in the air. And above him, a gulf of nothing. What human has scaled such height, has been such a fantastically attenuated pendulum? So I stop to watch the shudder inside him. Is he consuming it or balling the tether between rows of legs, scanning it? Whatever he's doing, he's clearly and at a remarkable rate rising. The curl and lengthening of his body steadying him higher and higher, so that, as I watch, he floats from my ankles to my knees to my waist, and in short order, we are eye to eye. It's then I think of fear. At my ankles, it was nothing, the fall. Even now, to me, not much. But soon he will rise higher, to a height from which I'd be terrified to suspend, to swing up above the heads of couples strolling hand in hand, with only that filament and the wind sway, its ocean size capsize. Impossible. So I look up again to gauge the height and see, because I'm awake to them now, I'm looking now. A dozen other caterpillars also rising, maybe end of day rising to the trees for sleep. But how to get the line up there unless they've kept tethered all day as they explored earth beneath them, like humans walking the ocean floor, an umbilicus waiting to reel them up. Yet this is height, not depth, height. So like humans dangling from skyscrapers, or no, not skyscrapers, because no structures stand nearby, no solidity at all. So like humans ascending to clouds, a dozen humans inching up on their own power to the undersides of clouds. And when I look back down to find my caterpillar, I start because he's gone, but soon see that he's not gone. He's just above me now, 4 feet over my head, tensing and ingesting his silk. On this day, when I've done nothing, when a walk has seemed accomplishment enough because I've lacked the will to do more, he's above me now, ingesting, tensing. I've let my life drift to a place with no horizon, without vertical wonder. And I'm just going to read one last poem. This poem is called The Dogs of Sochi, and it's about the preparation for the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi, Russia. In preparation for the international community, the authorities killed all the stray dogs in the town, thousands, tens of thousands of them. And this poem is about a news report about one dog who got away. The Dogs of Sochi. Shot with poisoned darts, tossed in trucks. Can you imagine that? The questing snout snapping back toward the stung flank, the flux of rising pavement, two-legged blur, a shout before you're hefted by front legs, thrown on a pile of your kind, the cold, sour tang of death encircling, theirs and your own, and then, perhaps, nothing. But one sprang free. The news said one, small, red, prick-eared. The dart dropped off. She shook, bolted the mound of bodies, leapt out, hit the street, heard them scrambling after, and shot from the sound. Just one. You taste the air rushing on her tongue, the push of blood and breath, a running song. Thank you.
Wow, Ben, thank you. That was wonderful. Especially like the last one I like very much because I'm a big animal rights activist. Beautiful poem. How awful.
It's terrible that they did that. My God.
I know. Oh, boy. Well, thank you very much for reading. Beautiful job. Okay, so next, let me just get my banner down here. Next, we have Frederick-Douglass Knowles II, who is an educator and activist, fervent in achieving community augmentation through literary arts. He is the inaugural Poet Laureate of the city of Hartford, And he was recently named a finalist for the New England Association of Teachers of English Poet of the Year Award. His work has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize. He is the recipient of the Nutmeg Poetry Award, as well as the 2020 Connecticut Artist Fellowship Program's Artistic Excellence Award for Poetry and Creative Nonfiction. Frederick-Douglass is the author of Black Rose City, a collection of poems exploring the underpinnings of interpersonal relationships in communities isolated by socio-political barriers and reflecting the memories of a city youth growing up in Norwich, Connecticut, as well as he's also the author of many published essays, articles, and individual poems. He's a professor of English at Three Rivers Community College in Norwich, Connecticut. Please welcome, if you would, Frederick-Douglass Knowles II. Hey. Oh,
was on me.
There you go.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I'm just going to hop right into it. I'm going to read a couple of poems from the book Black Rose City. The first one is about roller skating, because we were avid roller skaters, and I've recently returned to my childhood in roller skating. So this is titled, How Many Fanatics in the Cosmic Realm of Roller Skating Actually Overdosed on Rhythm and Speed? I laced my shiny black boots and dashed the boys' bathroom to Kristen fluorescent green zingers in lukewarm water. That assured my wheels an extra grip. Disco lights flickered like electronic Christmas trees. Huge box speakers dangled from the ceiling, blaring Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's close to midnight. Something evil's lurking from the dawn. Under the moonlight, Vincent Price hypnotizes and Bush's roller boogies with the funk of 40,000 years. Saturday nights belong to the skate gods. We, merely obedient zealots circling their shrine. Wilbur rolled in reverse, sporting blue dickies and a white crisp polo tee embroidered skate guard, though he never benched anyone for speeding. Marshall owned the only pair of triple jump bar skates ever seen in the rows, shiny, crisp blades, reflecting psychedelic hues of turquoise, green, and gold, mesmerizing white girls as they floated past, waving blonde locks of velour. Pete fancied an old wheel for a toe stopper, cool the way he cut his ankles, screeching his plump frame to a halt. An exhilarated Shanice offered me $5 for a blind couple skate. I did the math. 2 slices of pizza, a Coke and some chips for 2 songs. Deal. Allison, the economically advantaged out of the group, dished out her allowance for pole position tournaments, and I was the shoot the duck king, the undefeated chip-tooth champ. When Africa and Bambaata's Planet Rock hit the turntable, we dropped conspiracy theories on who shot JR and wager how many laps one of us could achieve before Rolo, the by-the-book guard, blew his whistle. We ignored his shrieks. No time for rules, only time for speed, more whistle blowing, and then Rolo's pointed finger. His direct order to get off the floor and sit by the office. Damn, I got kicked off again. 8 laps into white lines. Melly Mel's prophetic hook shouting to his skate fiend on the verge of ODing to don't do it. Baby, too late. During my 10-minute suspension, I contemplated how many fanatics in the cosmic realm of roller skating actually overdosed on rhythm and speed in a world of bliss in 80s pop music. Time's up. I pressed my black toe stopper firmly into the carpet, assuring me a solid thrust back onto the floor. Next poem I'm going to read is in homage to the West Side Park in Norwich, Connecticut, Black Rose City, where we played a whole lot of basketball, and also in homage to my friend Wilbur, who I just referenced in this poem, their skating poem, who actually passed away last year, right before the pandemic actually started. And so this is where we used to do West Side. The burning sun radiates off steamy concrete. A pounding basketball engenders ancestral baselines, summoning full court warriors to battle. Crossover connoisseurs form tribal squadrons. Rival leaders select devoted combatants in search of conquest. Salted sweat seeps from pores, swiped away by flushed hands. A splash of cool water revitalizes somnolent opponents in mere points from claiming the throne. Tony's matchstick legs didn't prevent him from waddling down court, raining threes for 40 days and nights. Little Charlie's small frame and sharp wit enticed adversaries to test his wild left-hand style, leaving competitors dumbfounded as the sacred spear breezed behind his back, to his right, across the lane and off the board. The rattling clank of metal echoed throughout the park as he smacked the rusted surface with authority. Somehow, Phil's unorthodox technique, one hand on pants, the other on ball, was sufficient enough for him to achieve victory, releasing his grip just long enough to sink a jumper in your face, quickly recapturing his beltless denims before they slid past his ankles. Amazing how the drumline of the motherland pulsed in each warrior, each riding her rhythm to a sundry beat. Jay Gill could post up, push off, lean back into a fadeaway, and backpedal down court to the snapping sound of the net, flashing his signature grin from ear to ear. Boo was the legendary Zulu, consistently stroked from half court before three-point lines were ever fathomed. Battle cries from antagonistic, shit-talking I got nexters outlined the battlefield. E. Boone, A. Wall, Artie Clay, Boski, Shank Dog, Sweet Dick Willie, Al, Ice, James, Little Henry, Butterball, and Jerome, all declaring war against reigning victors. Warriors who never set foot in Saharan sand were sent home through syncopated bounce passes. Alley-oops sent them sailing like true descendants of flying Africans, declaring freedom. This next poem I'm going to read is about a game I used to play called Kick the Can. Kick the Can, summer nights at 575, which is the 575 in the London Turnpike is the address of my grandmother's house where I grew up at, and 574 in the London Turnpike is the address of Three Rivers Community College, where I now teach at. So I teach across the street from the house I grew up in. And in the poem, it's referenced when it was Thames Community College. The blaze of an August sun melts into the nocturne. Ripened crickets summon mates to full moon fantasies. Fireflies unveil hidden cracks and shadows of the unknown as a thick coat of blackness entices silhouettes pressed against the kitchen window. When the sternness of mommy's stature submitted to our symphonies of Can We Please, we'd bolt down the stairs, pile into the front yard, form a circle and commence. 1, 2, 3, not it. Raymond is the first relieved. Round 2. Exoneration soothes the involuntary spasm jolting down the backside of my leg. Rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6. Bubblegum in the dish. Liberates the twins. While the neighborhood gang, Danny, Elena, Laura Porter, and the Perkins follow suit. Jamie pleads best out of 3. An orange crush plucked from Gammy's refund stash, a heap of would-be nickels jumbled in a tattered plastic bag, concealed from can-kicking culprits, is placed in front of the porch steps. Tag-alongs are forewarned not to follow as summer night cosmonauts blast off into a pit of blackness. Shrubs posed as double agents prevent sultry air from revealing secrecies as we crept and crawled around backyard corners lying dormant in thick blades of grass like a creeping lioness stalking her prize. A still figure dangles in the apple tree. Another angles between the pear trees and the path leading down the backside of the far garage. The grapevine swabbled by the abyss is off limit. The can keeper tactically executes his conquests, the wrath of Khan unleashed. Midnight marauders scurry into the open, the twins on the first court. Tap, tap, tap me on the side of the garage. Lisa soon follows. The apples tree's cloak ineffective. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are caught to the rhythm of aluminum clanking against concrete. The welcoming wall at Thames Valley Community College symmetrically across the street enables marksmanship. A silver cylinder gleams the humming street lamps. Slowly, I cross the quiet, glued to the fence, rose thorns prickling my clammy fresh flesh. Jamie peers in the darkness. I rise, he turns, eyes locked, he squints, focuses, spotted, I dash, flawless strides. His abrupt stumble offers me the jump. I size up the sea in the center of the can like a kicker eyeing the snap. 3 seconds left, down by 2. I plant my foot, cock back my right. His outstretched arm inches away. Bam! Hollow meadow hurls into darkness. The imprisoned scatter into moonbeams. The tatty cylinder repositioned. The can keeper commences. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Ready or not, here I come. And the last poem I'll read is from the manuscript that I'm working on now, titled Sinking in Moonlight Alone. And this highlights an experience that I had when I got in a prayer line to get prayed for while at church. It's called Olio Under Moonlight. And Olio is a dramatic scene in minstrel shows where blackface was used, and the olio was like a solo act in the middle of the drama. Olio Under Moonlight. When the prophetess pushes you to the floor, you pretend to catch the Holy Ghost. Shimmy your shoulders, Bessie Smith the blues from your hips. Mumble praise Jesus with the conflux of heathens falling faint from an entertainer's touch. An 11th commandment grounds your mother's inflection. Go and get prayed for. The twiddle in the curve of your quiet arm tickling her father's fur. You hand her to grandma, broach the aisle's Pentecostal shore, wade in the water of prayer. The prophetess asks if you want to be saved. Olive oil cross across your brow. Her trepid palm, a lambent butterfly in search of hollow ground. She shakes in color folk cadence, removes her monarch from the shoal of shine swirling above your nose. You open your eyes, lick salt from parched lips, feet anchored to floor. She rebukes your disobedience, stiff arms you into the hush of carpet, an ambiguous delusion, surmising which is more blasphemous, dishonoring your mother or collapsing an imitative star of God. You coax an encore, script your scene from the lost pages of Acts, the one about the parable of a wooden puppet strung in blackface, staging an olio under moonlight. A Friday night minstrel that cast your mind and body as lead, leaving me, your thespian soul, to receive the award for Best Supporting Actor in the Gospel of a Black Church. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful. That was amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing more from the new collection you're working on, because that was phenomenal. So
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, so next we have David K. Leff is an award-winning essayist and poet and former Deputy Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection. He is the author of a dozen books, including 2 novels in verse. David is Poet Laureate of Canton, Connecticut, where he serves as Deputy Historian and Town Meeting Moderator. He is Poetry Editor of Connecticut Woodlands Magazine. In 2016 to 17, the National Park Service appointed him Poet in Residence for the New England National Scenic Trail. David recently co-edited New England Nature, an anthology of early regional nature and environmental writing. You can view David's work at davidkleff.com. So let me welcome David Leff. Hello, David. Welcome.
Hello, Barb. Thank you for bringing us together tonight. This is great.
It is fun. It's great. Let me get out of your way here.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with a couple pieces that are homage to the season that we're enjoying, although today was rather cold for spring. And the first one I wrote last year, as you can tell by the title. It's called Coronavirus Spring at Hammonasset Beach. First day of spring. My wife and I walk the beach under a milky pearlescent sky, the sea quiescent, chalky like the inside of an oyster shell. In the distance, water fades to air at a ghostly horizon. Strangely, we find comfort in spicy salt and rancid fish scents, circling gulls calling shrilly, waves lapping at sand that gives way underfoot. Walkers of all ages and complexions pass us, but repel like common pole magnets in these coronavirus days. As if there's nothing to fear, children build castles for the tides to devour. A couple toss a football, and two teen girls dance wildly to music only they hear. Bearded, wearing a ball cap, holding a wooden staff, a man stops and smiles. Nice day for the world to end, he chuckles slyly. I won't repent. I've imagined ice, fire, and thunder, yet the last day in billions of years, when the sun's corona flares out, may be quiet like today. Just as when the twin towers fell in flames and dust, Mary and I find solace by the sea which birthed all life. In centrifugal times, we're drawn to water, perhaps searching for a second chance. Now, these days, it's kind of hard to pass a wetland without hearing the rhythmic whistling of spring peepers, those tiny tree frogs that you hardly ever see. This is called Day of the Peepers. Risen from half-frozen muck, peepers give voice to awakening soil, chanting a sharp, piping whistle. I hear 1,000 sleigh bells or an invasion of spectral creatures, but frogs sing loudly and fast, only to mate. Tiny carolers bearing dark crosses on their backs. They remain invisible, but for sound, but for faith. The pulsing chorus is my creed, a promise kept yearly by this worshiping choir, a shrill, clear call of hope. This next one is about a lobsterman who is a friend of mine, a generation older than me, passed away about 10 years ago, just as lobsters were fading in Long Island Sound because of climate change. This is called Last of the Real Norwalk Lobstermen, and it has some foul language in it, so please don't be surprised. It's not gratuitous. You'll see that it's really integral to the character I'm describing. Last of the Real Norwalk Lobstermen. Henry grabs the buoy with a boat hook, wraps the line on a winch, and hauls a 7-pot trawl, bits of seaweed and mud flying off the rope. Large gloved hands snatch wire cages as they surface, with a dripping splutter. Muscular, with a creased leathery face, spindly chicken legs and short pants, and bulging biceps, he's Popeye escaped from cartoons and comic strips, shaped by 75 years of sun, wind, salt, and tides. Caught in the wire parlor, several glossy, dark olive lobsters scuttle about like giant Jurassic insects. Shorts and a few eggers, some spider crabs and a starfish go overboard with a plop. The keeper's tossed into a tank of circulating seawater. Looking out at clusters of colorful plastic buoys like a field of floating flowers, he points a finger. "Greedy sons of bitches," he says in a voice rising from a low growl to a godly bellow. "Some of these bastards with a couple thousand pots aren't making a living. They're doing a killing, raping the resource." In a tattered orange apron, Henry boasts about his new Harley, cuts thick chunks of stinking oily mackerel, stuffing them into each emptied trap, a lobster's gourmet fantasy. Years ago, he was bar to bar, raising hell, igniting fights. Now, everyone scrambles when they see this old fuck coming, he says. No telling what the SOB will do. Henry puts the baited pots on the rail, slowly piloting the boat forward, each one falling with a rhythmic splash, quickly disappearing beneath sun-sparkled green water. There are no laws, he explains, just restrictions on people's lives. But he keeps close to the pulse, tying up his 36-footer each night beside the police boat. Hosing mud, fish oil, and debris off the deck, he guides the boat around a maze of red, blue, and purple buoys. It's a pirate business, he says. Pricks soaking pots just to hold ground when fishing sucks, sabotaging boats, cutting lines. Henry fished until lobsters faded in warming Long Island Sound waters. A force of nature, he held on until nature gave out. Never pray for me, he'd laughed. No one gets out of here alive. This last piece is about aging. As I get older, I've decided that I'm in favor of getting older. I'm not too keen on aging, but I think often one goes with the other. And this is titled Tin Man, and reverberates a little bit from The Wizard of Oz. You remember the Tin Man aged with rust and then went to seek a heart. Of course, tin doesn't rust. It's kind of a curious thing about the Tin Man. So, Tin Man. Age brings me closer to Oz, so oil me up with ibuprofen against the stiffness and rust of years, where muscle aches measure days as fatigue erodes desire. Love given by friends lubricates time, grows the heart, spawns an afterlife in living hearts, lest the soul predecease the body, since tin does not rust. Joyfully, I move toward the emerald glow, horizon of dreams, where I might trip over a rainbow. Eagerly, I'll pull back the curtain and find whatever is to be found. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Wonderful poems, David. Thank you for sharing them. I love how you give voice to Henry. He really becomes real. It's really like force of nature, like you see it.
He was larger than life.
Cool. So I'm pinch hitting for Barb for a moment to introduce our next reader, who you know as Barb, the Poet Laureate of Ridgefield, Connecticut, B. Fulton Jennes, serves as an educator and poetry programmer for Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum. Her poems have appeared or will appear in Comstock Review, Tupelo Quarterly, Night Heron, Anti-Heroin Chic, Connecticut River Journal, Art Ascent, Tar River Poetry, Stone Canoe, Naugatuck River Journal, Frost Meadow Review, and other venues. And her poem, Lessons of a Cruel Tide, was awarded first place in the Writer's Digest annual competition in the rhyming poetry category. Jennes's chapbook, Blinded Birds, will be published by Finishing Line in spring of 2022. She is a retired public school English teacher. So welcome, Barb. Soon.
Sorry.
There you are.
I disappeared for a minute. Sorry about that. Well, thank you very much, Ben, and welcome everyone. By the way, please, if you have questions or comments, put them in the comments section, and you may have a bar on the right-hand side that you can click on, and we hope you'll offer some questions. I'm going to read some work from a collection I'm working on now that is about some wild and wacky characters from my youth, including my own family. And some of them are kind of grisly stories, so I hope no one takes offense. But I'll start with one about my father. It's called The Secrets of Men. And let me pull it up here. Okay. One winter, our father strung an 8-point buck from an elm tree where our swing once hung. He sawed it open, stuck his arm inside like he was reaching for something secret in the back of a small, dark closet. His gunroom had 2 locks, heavy deadbolt above, old mortise lock below. Was so small a man could stand in the center, stretch his arms like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, touch all 4 walls. We weren't allowed to enter. A massive partner's desk cramped his always shaded office, its contents, pencil stubs, maps, marigold yellow boxes filled with slides, were forbidden. He tucked a pistol behind a set of Shakespeare tragedies bound in red cloth. When he died, we unearthed a picture of him at age 16, pointing his grandfather's Colt Army revolver at the camera, found photos of beguiling women unknown to us, discovered the jangling tags of a dog shot for killing a neighbor's chickens. This next one is one of my favorites. It's called Mr. Bird, and these are true. These are all based on truth. Mr. Bird. Mr. Bird wore an eye patch to cover the black hole left when a big buck careened over the hood of his car one morning, its skull smashing the windshield, its antler gouging his eyeball right out of the socket. Lucky it didn't impale his brain, my mother said, just taking what it wanted before stumbling back into the woods. Then there was his right hand, pinky gone, ring finger missing from the first knuckle up, the casualties of a table saw accident when a plank slipped, ferried fingers into the blade. Unabashed, he used his hands for emphasis when he talked, spread both palms in the air, fingers fluttering like birds, the right hand an incomplete mime of the left, a one-legged stork that still flew with its mate for life. The last time I saw him, only the thumb and broad palm of his ruined hand remained. When another workshop accident claimed the remnant of his ring finger, he jumped back, amazed, cried, "Fingers? You want fingers?" threw his hand into the whirring blade, fed it a feast of flesh, bone, blood. Whenever Mr. Bird's name came up at dinner, my sisters circled their index fingers around their ears. My mother buried her face in her hands. My father shook his head in silent horror. But I understood. Sometimes you surrender things the universe wants. Sometimes it gives back to you a perfect dovetail joint, a day with only the collisions of atoms. Another one, again, these are all true. This is about my father's best friend. When Mr. Halsey coughed up blood is the title, and also the first line. When Mr. Halsey coughed up blood on his starched white work shirt one morning at breakfast, Mrs. Halsey knew her suspicion was right. There was more to her husband's racking cough and sweat-stained sheets than too many camels or too warm night air. A chest x-ray confirmed the worst, and Mr. Halsey was packed off to Homer Folks, a tuberculosis sanatorium 80 miles away. We visited him once, along with Mrs. Halsey and their son, but the hospital refused the 3 of us girls entry. Too young, they said, and we were left outside to occupy ourselves on a decaying merry-go-round near the empty children's wing. We heaved against its rusted rails, gaining the little momentum to be coaxed from the ponderous disc, then jumped on as it lumbered to a slow, groaning stop. I thought of children who had once played here. Did their ghosts defy our efforts and strain backwards against us, thwarting our feeble attempt at exhilaration? Blood that pumped and unscarred lungs that still vacuumed fresh air? Was it their grimace I saw in the punctures of the time test that dotted my pale forearm? Had they coughed up blood on pleated white yolks, sought sunshine and fresh air to cure their affliction, only to die amid the echoes of rattling phlegm in a ward of wan faces? slightly more grisly. That was the summer Patty Kirby trapped a feral kitten inside the lead-lined box where the milkman deposited bottles on their front steps. She wanted to keep it from running away while she was inside eating dinner. She wanted to make it hers. By the time Patty remembered the next morning, leapt from her Rice Krispies and flung open the heavy lid, the kitten was stiff and still, its back arched, its neck craned up, its mouth frozen open like the taxidermied bass that hung in my uncle's den, forever arcing to break surface, forever hungry for the very thing it could not snatch. Just days before, the kitten had curled a contented comma in my lap, yawned with a great tremor, flaunted its pink sandpaper tongue and corrugated throat. I smelled a holy ocean on its breath. Even at this moment, dead thing, I hear your cries, how they grew from small, quiet questions in the dark to an urgent yowl, invoking a strong wind, an intervening God. And I think I'll end with, yes, this one about a great uncle of mine, Uncle Fred. I'm sorry, I hope this isn't too depressing, the way to end the evening, but Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred lived years with only one lung, like an Electrolux sucking up life through a dust-clogged bag. He might have lived longer if he'd quit sneaking camels whenever Aunt Gladys's back was turned. Once after dinner, the cancer-pocked lung already carved from his wheezing chest, he invited me to take a walk. I jumped at the chance to monopolize this childless curmudgeon's attention, to grip his pelted hand, to study his blue-black anchor tattoo entwined with snakish ropes. But we ended up crouched below the knife fins of his pink caddy parked in our driveway, him puffing frantically on a half-burnt butt. He swore me to secrecy, but I snitched on him the instant we got back inside. That evening, he turned his head when I leaned in for a goodnight kiss, and I cried myself to sleep. The cancer came back, invaded Fred's ill-used, lingering lung. We girls were permitted to visit his hospital deathbed just once, our parents insisting, "Doesn't Uncle Fred look wonderful, girls?" After that, he was gone, just gone. No mention of him dying, no funeral or farewell. I was 10, old enough to understand that things die and don't come back. The next summer, I was sure I saw Uncle Fred on a dock in Nantucket. He was dressed as a sea captain holding forth to a cluster of bedraggled fishermen, the same silver mustache, the same barrel belly, same air of disdain. I ran to tell my parents that Uncle Fred was alive, and although it made no sense even to me, I hoped they would nod, take me by the hand, and guide me to the man they never let me see die. Tell me, this is how we come back, in dreams and visions, sometimes as real as the brush of a refused kiss, the smell of a forbidden cigarette. So, oops, let me get these down here. Here we go. Oh, thanks. Well, let me bring everybody back into the stream. Please, everyone who's watching, if you have any questions you'd like to have us ask the poets here this evening, just put them in the chat section. Let me see if we haven't had any yet. Everyone, this was a wonderful reading, and I really appreciate your patience with my.
Thank you, Barb, for having us all, and thank you all for your poems. This was a great hour.
It really was. It really was.
It was indeed.
And I want to.
No, I just want to say I appreciate the poem Uncle Fred snitching on him.
Oh,
I
yeah.
enjoy that, and Dan, nothing but kudos, man, for your daughter's accomplishment, man. I know you're very, 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 very proud, man. I know you are, man. And David, I forgot the gentleman's name, but the lobsterman,
Henry.
Henry, yeah, like Ben said, you captured his character, very well. So man. And then Ben, your poem about sex in the woods. I mean, what else can I say? That's Henry. Kudos on that, man. I need to write
Really,
one
what
of
else
those.
could you say?
I need to write one. That's what I got to do.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, boy. Hey, we have a question in the chat section, and it says that, have you all connected with each other before tonight, or was this the first time you were hearing each other's work? Good question.
Yeah, I've connected with Daniel and David before on some laureate readings that I hosted at Barnes & Noble Yukon bookstore in Hartford, like pre-COVID, of course. No, Barb is my first time connecting with Barb, and my first time connecting with Ben, because Julie was the previous poet laureate of West Hartford, so she had came down and read, but first time with Ben. So welcome.
I actually think we may have read in a bar in Hartford.
That's why I probably don't remember.
Yeah, no, it was loud. It was hard to, but I think I remember you reading, but it was a while.
Okay. Thank you.
And I've read with everyone except Barb, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, this is my first with any of you folks because I'm new in the position too, and but it's been great. Oh, and I just wanted to say also, everyone who's watching, next week, same time, same place, hopefully a little bit less flawed in terms of my technique. We have Tony Fusco, Poet Laureate of West Haven, Diane Lohman of Westport, Ryan Parker of Manchester, Karen Silk of Washington, and Gordy Whiteman of Guilford. So I hope everyone will come back to hear those wonderful poets as well. I'm looking forward to hearing them again. I have not really heard any of them. So this is great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the viewers who came and spent time with us this evening. And happy National Poetry Month.
Yes, thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Barb, for
Bye,
this.
everybody.
So much
Take
fun.
care.
Take care, guys. Peace.
Bye.